Good afternoon. Welcome. I'm Rachel Keegan-Kelly, the Director of Enrollment at School Year Abroad, and you have just joined the SYA Italy admissions reception, Zoom reception, and we're really excited to be here with you this afternoon. I wanted to just bring your attention. We're trying something a little different. We're doing this in the form of a meeting. So for those who want, there's two options to view it. You can view speaker view or gallery view. If you choose gallery view, you will see all of our faces. We have quite a few people in attendance in the event. Or you can choose speaker view. And if you select that, then you will only see the big screen will show who's actually speaking at the time. And it may be, depending on what your preference is, it may be you prefer to view it that way so you can see who's going to be presenting. We have, I think, a very informative and educational program for you this evening. Our goal, or this afternoon, this evening for some people, the morning for others, our goal is for you to, by the end of this event, have a much better sense of what our program in SYA Italy is like. We want to bring you some visuals. We've got a video we're going to show you, and we have some great guests. And I just want to introduce them right now. You will hear from them after we show the video. But our resident director, Patrick Scanlon, is here. He is lives in Viterbo, so his background is where he is right now. We have Samuel Asensi, who is a recent alum, and his mother, Gabrielle Summers. We have Daisy McDowell, who's also a recent alum who was there last year, and her parents, Jeff and Carrie McDowell. So you'll be have an opportunity to hear from all of them during this event. And we also have Shauna Campbell, who you've received myriad emails from, and we want to just thank her for her work on this event. And she and I are going to be kind of tag teaming. So the program, we're going to show you a video in a minute. Then Mr. Scanlon is going to present with the students on some really key elements of what SYA is about and have a real conversation, kind of a moderated panel of sorts. And we'll hear from our parents a little bit. And then the last 15 minutes, we will have a question and answer for this event. And the way we're going to do it is we're going to, and I'll go over this again when we get there, but we're going to allow people, everyone when they enter this event has been muted. But when you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask that question. And what we're hoping, we want to hear people's voices in this event, and we're hoping that it goes smoothly and that people sort of take turns and that kind of thing. So when you do that, we'll ask you to identify yourself and sort of where you're from and ask your question, and then just mute yourself. So I'll run through that again as we run towards the end of the program. But without further ado, I actually want to turn this over to our resident director in Viterbo, Patrick Scanlon.
Rachel, we gonna see the video first?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh my God. See, I told.
The walk to school is actually really cool. If you take the time to really engage in what's happening around you, to look around and see how beautiful of a place you are. Sometimes there are days where I'm just looking around and taking in what now is my home.
Everybody says it's life-changing. Everybody says that it's the experience of a lifetime, and I can't think of any other words. It's not just schoolwork. It's actual practical experience that you can't really get anywhere else.
Having to figure out my own environment, the confidence that I have built from that is the biggest thing I'll take away from SYA Italy. The second that I got here, I knew I'd made the right choice. There's no way to describe it.
Studying ancient history or archaeology or Latin or Greek gives you lots of opportunities for the hands-on. And Italy, in this sense, with its 3,000 years of civilizations, can give to a young mind an experience that is almost impossible to describe in words.
I love the challenge, being able to come back and say, oh my gosh, I spoke Italian all day, I made my way all the way to Rome. It's liberating to be able to have that kind of independence that most high school students don't get the chance to experience. I've realized that the world is a lot smaller and a lot more connected than I ever imagined.
My host family, they are the cutest people I have ever met. I can leave Italy saying I'm part Italian now, and I am part of their family, and they love me and I love them. And the relationships that I've created with them, that's something that I'm gonna carry with me for the rest of my life.
I know it can be sort of scary and thinking, oh, 9 months in a foreign country, it flies by so fast and it's so fun, and it's an experience that I feel so fortunate to have been involved in, and it's not something that a lot of people get to do, so if you have the opportunity, please do it.
Just by applying, you're saying, hey, I want something different, I want something new. And if it's something that you want to do it.
Great. Thank you, Shauna. All you, Pat.
Thank you very much. Benvenuti a tutti, buonasera. That's what we say around here this time of day. And very much welcome to everybody. You can see from that video that at least you get a visual, both in terms of what the city looks like, what the town looks like, and the joy that our students have in engaging in this program. So I wanted to give you a couple highlights, and I'm going to monitor my own time because I could talk about this for days. We've been in this site since 2001, so we're in our 20th year. The students that are joining us tonight were here last year, and as many of you might understand, their year was truncated very sadly and very abruptly in early March, and they went home. So I thought I'd take a minute here to mention the situation with COVID, or how it is that we are monitoring this as a school. The leadership team is looking at this very carefully, very consistently, and very often to determine any changes that we need to address as we look forward to next year. We're all living through very similar situations right now on this globe, and the case that in point that everybody's interested in right now is vaccines. We don't have a clear picture of when those are going to happen. We do have a plan, but it's probably best not for me to say what those are right now, because there are some plans at the national European level that are a little up in the air still. But as soon as we know anything about vaccines or any other change that would affect our circumstances to open at the end of August next year, we will communicate those to you. So more to the point about what we are and what we offer and what students can gather from this. Because we've been here for 20 years, a big change occurred in 2017 when we adopted our new mission as part of our strategic plan that we said to ourselves, we want to make a more deliberate effort to get students to truly engage in this unique and rich world around them at all of our schools. So we designed a curriculum as part of an entire curriculum redesign that is based on 4 principles that are cultural competence, language acquisition among them, and we design all of our activities on the basis of our mission. That means that classes are coordinated between what students do in school and how we get them to engage outside of school. When I first started here, we might put them on a bus and take them all to one place and then take them to somewhere and talk to them about that place. I can honestly say we almost never do that anymore. Students often get themselves to those places. We meet them there, engage them in challenge activities, or they engage in activities they've designed themselves on the basis of what they're studying in their classes. So that sort of deliberate attempt to use this entire country as our classroom is our goal. You'll hear from our students in a moment about how they have faced some of those challenges and what they got out of it. I would say that being here for me is not just about the beauty of the buildings and the monuments and the delicious food. The most important anchor for me, and I think for our students, is the people. So I'll give you a little overview later and say more about our host families specifically, which are the people with whom students are in most contact, our faculty and staff. Everybody welcomes the students here in a way that is, I think, unique to the Mediterranean, which has a welcoming tradition in its history for a long, long time. But all the way from the mayor to young, elementary school siblings, students will feel quite welcome. So the first sort of topic I'd like the students to address today is about that unique approach to using not only our school building, but the country as our classroom. Breaks down into school travel, what we call field work, an immersion program at the beginning, and culminating experiences at the end of each semester, including a capstone project at the end of the year. So those are authentic and sort of groundbreaking ways that we do it, because I talk to university heads who have abroad programs here who don't let their students have as much independence as we do. There's a safety net under each one of those independent projects that they do, where they are often groups without the teachers, but we're prepared to respond if we need to. It's really a great and an authentic way to learn. It's all on the basis of language acquisition, because without it, it would be hard to move around here. Even though some people do speak English, if without your Italian, we feel that you just cannot express and understand the value of this without it. And so the students, as they go along, improve their language almost in surprising ways to us, even though it happens year after year. It still astonishes us how well they can do it. The unique offerings of our classes take full advantage of a global course that looks not only at, say, immigration, but speaks to immigrants. An agroecology class that looks at the science of the place in an agricultural area and the science of food. History courses, we have Latin, and even intro Greek to preserve the classical tradition that both this place and this scholastic system is based on. All of our courses are designed to meet the changing realities of education today. I presume that the parents who are on this call might not recognize that the education that we went through is an industrial revolution model, and we didn't have Google available to us at every step of the way. And so educating students who can get answers to information with the tips of their fingers is challenged us to change the way we do things. And I think most school systems are looking at modern ways to educate students. And we are very, very lucky to be working on some of that professional development right now by virtue of not having students. So we'll get even better at what we're doing. I just want to say one astonishing thing also is that I read that.
Pat, you're cutting in and out. You're freezing. Pat, you're frozen. Okay. Give it like 2 seconds.
We're teaching. It's probably more important than how we're.
Pat, you're freezing a little bit, just so you know.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so what I'll do is then I'll simply say that our students in this curriculum redesign, because I've been here 15 years, are happier, more satisfied with what they're able to do here, and go back with skills that sometimes they tell us they help their college roommates adjust to the change of college because of what they were able to accomplish here. But let's see, starting with Daisy. Why don't, Daisy, you think of an example from a trip or field work that you would feel would illustrate some of the points I'm making?
Okay, so probably my two favorite fieldwork Wednesdays we did one where we walked all, like the teachers just told us like meet in Rome at this time. So we had to like buy our own train tickets, figure out where we met them in Rome, and then we walked all over Rome to the 7 hills. And it was just so amazing because like you had to use your language skills, so you got like immediate approval in your language because you just like had to speak it. That was your only way to learn. And it was so fun. That was our first time to go to Rome, and we got like a basic understanding of the city and learned how to use the transportation and stuff like that. And then another one of my other favorites was one time we watched this beautiful Italian film called La Vita è Bella. And then since we were in Italy, we one Wednesday just got to go where they filmed the movie and like see where everything was filmed and like learn more about it. And it was just amazing. And the fieldwork Wednesdays were like my favorite part of school because it's just learning in a completely new way. And it makes it so exciting and fun while you still get to learn so much. And yeah, like we were thrown into new cities and towns where no one spoke English, and to get around, we just had to be able to like have conversations in Italian. So it really forced us to learn and like learn another basic skill is just like booking trains, finding your trains, when to get off and everything like that. And I loved it.
Well, I love hearing about it because I realize how much planning went into something that it appears we're not participating in. So to hear you talk about it like that warms my heart. Thank you. Samuel, how about you?
Hi, I'm Samuel. And so I guess Daisy was talking about the Fieldwork Wednesdays, and basically every Wednesday we kind of have a day where we get to like be out of the classroom and explore the town in a more educational setting. And for me, those were definitely my favorite days too. I think everybody would agree when it comes to that. But one of the best memories I've had is we have these groups that we're put in. They're kind of like advisory groups, and they're called Bronchi. And my teacher, my advisor, was the English teacher, and he was new this year. His name is Mr. Horton. I think he's definitely going to be there when you guys go. And he was really awesome because he was adjusting while we were adjusting. He was completely new. He didn't really know the language at all. And on top of that, it was like a great experience to be able to be like friends with your English teacher, which not many people get to do. And so one of the best memories I've had is there's this place called Bagnoregio, Civita di Bagnoregio, and we got to go there with our English teacher and kind of explore the area. And we did get lost a bit, but it was just fun to be able to like meet and like interact with your teacher like a friend and like a guide more than just like an in-class teacher.
Pat, it sounds like Pat might be frozen again. Pat, are you frozen? Yeah, it looks like he's frozen. Thank you, Samuel, for that. Let's just see. Yeah, Pat, I wonder if maybe if you turn your video off, if you could hear us, we could hear the audio from you. We may have lost him. That's okay. Great. Well, that I will jump in and cover until Pat's able to rejoin us. So, Pat, are you back?
Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I moved a little closer to our router. We're having a lightning storm, so that might have something to do with it.
Oh, okay, thank you. I was prepared to jump in and keep it going, but Samuel just finished his great fieldwork experience. So
the other thing, the second topic I want to talk about today was life outside of school, namely not what we've talked about in terms of school work, but host family and extracurriculars. We choose our host families basically by word of mouth now, that other host families talk about the experience, but the majority of our host families come to us that way, but the vast majority are experienced ones as well. We do rotate out the families whose children move on so that we can always offer a family that has children at home. We require that they want to take an active interest in our students' lives and not just offer room and board. And they come very willingly that way. We interview them very carefully. We make our matches on the basis of information that students provide us and what we know about our families. They are probably the most important source of language acquisition, to say nothing of the fact that they are true families. One family knew that I was preparing for this reception tonight, said, "Tell them we want to adopt them." And that's the philosophy that we go in. So students go home to their host families each day, but between school and doing that, they participate in extracurricular activities such as, you saw martial arts on the video, cooking classes, tennis, volleyball, basketball, soccer. But I'll turn it back over to Daisy to have her talk about some of the experiences that she's had with extracurriculars, both, and maybe anything she knew that her friends were doing as well.
Okay, yes. So like Mr. Scanlon was saying, like the host families treat you like their own. Like I love my family so much. And I had 2 little brothers who were 10 and 3, which was so fun because I have 2 sisters back home. And so it was so fun to just try something new. And my favorite thing about my host families was that every Sunday, like we had like our like long European lunches, and our whole family would come, like my host cousins, my host grandma, and we would just sit there for hours talking, and it was always the best time, like every single weekend. And then yeah, the host families were just so caring, and like same with all the Viterbo people. Like one activity I did was calcio, which is soccer. And if you can do it from SYA, you join like this like Italian soccer team. So we had like an Italian coach, and we would play with the local Italians, and it was so much fun. Like I'd never played soccer, but we just like would scrimmage every time and kick around, and it was just, everything about it was so fun. And I also did a fun cooking class, and another thing was I sang Christmas carols with Italians to the Christmas village, which was crazy fun too.
Samuel?
Yeah, so I go to boarding school. So it's very interesting to be put in an environment where you like come back home to your family every day and eat lunch with them and go hang out with them after school, because I've really never gotten to do that in high school. And they were, my host family, there's been rumors that they're like the happiest people in town. My host mom is a baker, and the food is absolutely amazing. I don't really think, like, kind of just like eat way less here because I just totally still miss the food in Italy. But for extracurriculars, like there's a lot of time after school to kind of explore. And when I wasn't exploring, I was horseback riding, because that is an option. Like the whole town is at your disposal. And since I'm a horseback rider, it was really easy to find people who've done it in the past, and it was easy to kind of transition into that sport there as well. And so it was really awesome to be able to be driven by my host mom. She was always happy to take me places and like take me to go ride. And everyone's just very inclusive, even though you don't really speak the language at first. And it's like it's definitely an interesting transition, but the fact that you're so involved in the town's life makes it really easy.
What would you come from a boarding school, right?
Yes.
How was that transition for you?
Okay, so are there any boarding school people here? I think, yeah, okay, so for sure. Okay, so I mean, I was never able to go get ice cream after school with my friends, or kind of sleep at a home and like work at a school. It's all kind of like centralized at boarding school, and it was really awesome to have like friends in town and friends at home too. And it's just like very interesting to be able to live that kind of, like, to experience both of those lives. And the transition was definitely interesting. I think it was overwhelming in such a positive way, because I was never able to have like those home friends and go out into the town on my own. Here, like, I still don't really know Virginia very well, like I know Viterbo. And yeah, it was definitely totally worth it every second.
Well, one of the reasons you could get to know it so well here, both you and Daisy, is because these towns were built what they call a dimensione di uomo, at the dimension of a human being. That automobiles were not in the picture when they designed these towns so that you could get around on foot. The city walls have a perimeter that's almost identical to the same perimeter of the school that I used to work at Albuquerque Academy. So it's a 4-kilometer perimeter. Takes me just under an hour to walk around it. But that's walking around the entire city plan that is considered medieval. Most of our students live outside those walls. Where did you live, Samuel?
I lived about I think it was a 1.5-kilometer walk just outside.
Daisy, you?
I lived in Villanova, I think.
Yeah.
No.
And how did you get to school?
I took the bus and then I would walk once my bus dropped me off outside the walls and then I would walk to the school from outside the walls.
But I recall sometimes that you would walk the entire way.
Yes.
And you would choose to do that?
Yeah, I loved the walk and just taking it all in and walking on the side of the street and seeing what was going on around you and just observing everything, this whole new lifestyle around you. So yeah, I would walk to school sometimes too, and it was a 30-minute walk.
So both of you might be as amazed as I am that there's this modern city with modern amenities inside a town that has some foundations that we could point to that are from 700 BC. So you could, get to a modern store. In some ways, the town is like an open air mall that, just has many little storefronts, cafes, a theater, lots of opportunities for snacks, that kind of thing, amid these stone buildings that have survived many wars. Some of them have not survived. So part of the city was rebuilt when the Allied forces bombed it during World War II. It's got that part of its history. The history is astonishing and never ending. And I promise that I don't go a day without learning something new about the history or the architecture or the people that came before. But it amazes me, and I think it amazes our students, if you guys could talk a little bit about how it is that this town is so confusing at first and so familiar when you've gotten used to it. How did you go about coming upon that familiarity? Daisy, you want to start?
Yes, sure. So yes, I remember one of our first days, you took us on a little tour around the block and then you let us go the next day and we're like, okay, you have to draw a map of the city. And so we were like, okay. And so you also took our phones. So we really had to figure it out. And so that really helped a lot. And then like you said too, every place that you explore, you notice something new, even though you walk on the same roads every day. And what I love the most about Viterbo is that it's small, but not too small. So that it's just such a community and so intimate and personal. And everyone is so everyone knows SYA. So they're so excited to meet the American students. And truly you become friends and associated with everyone in town, whether that's the person at the coffee shop or the place I ate lunch every day. They loved us. And there are these two old ladies and we looked forward to going to talk to them every day. And even my bus driver, I had the same bus driver and we just I would speak to him whenever I got on, and the people on my bus, you really just become friends with everyone because everyone's so inclusive and excited to meet you. So I loved that aspect of Viterbo.
Thank you so much. Samuel, how did you get familiar with the town?
Yeah, so I agree with Daisy. It's definitely such an interesting transition because going into Italy, I didn't really know any Italian, at all. I took maybe 2 lessons before, and just to prepare my mind. But going into the town, I didn't know any Italian. It's such a small town. There's not really a big English-speaking population, so I definitely had to be a little independent at first. But as I got a little bit more comfortable with the language, the town itself is definitely the main attraction. I love outside of it, but inside there's just so much to see. Even though it's so small, I'm already kind of bored here because even though it's a tiny town, there's just so much history on every corner and every street post. And I kind of started every other day, I would find a new place and add it to this list of Google locations. And I have 165, 166 places in the tiny town of Viterbo that have intricate stories behind them and like awesome like views of the town. And I don't know, it's just really awesome to be so familiar with such a complex yet like simply small town. But it was definitely like an adventure. I think that's the biggest things I've learned from SYA is that like every day something different is gonna be thrown at you. So kind of have to prepare yourself for that.
And some of that is by design, and some of it just happens because you're living here. The combination of both of those, we think, leads to the kind of learning and that sense of satisfaction that we see you guys have. You both sort of hit on something that I like to semi-joke about, that the town has a branding problem, and it has for about 750 years. It can't decide whether it wants to be called the city of popes because popes were elected here and that makes it its sense of pride, or if it's the city of Santa Rosa, which is commemorated with a festival at the beginning of each year that our students start the year with. Can you each say a word about what Santa Rosa is and how you experienced it? So, Daisy, why don't you start?
Okay, so Santa Rosa is like this festival that we got to do like the first weekend we got there, and it's like in Viterbo, and everyone goes and watches it from the city, so it's so crowded. It's like, and I like had a pretty unique experience because I had a host cousin who was my age, and they had waited out like all night, all day, like on the street where the people carried like it's like this huge like float thing that all these men carry on their shoulders. It's really hard to describe, but it's insane. And so I like literally watched it, like it was like 2 feet away from me, and I like took a picture right there, and it was so cool to watch. Samuel, maybe you can explain it better than me, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that was definitely really interesting. I don't know how many of the like UNESCO heritage sites there are in the world, but there's 6 in Lazio and there's 1 in Viterbo, in this tiny town. One of the like world heritage sites is like the Santa Rosa. It's called La Macchina di Santa Rosa, and it's this giant statue. It's very intricate. There's like lit candles around, and it's basically carried by 100 men, right, Mr. Scanlon?
That is correct. And in fact, it's taller than the buildings behind you.
Yes.
And it's carried by 100 men. And so it's this 5-story, 6-story statue that moves like a human being. That's the part that I find the most astonishing. So,
and yeah. Oh, I mean, there's just like so much history behind it. That little thing, it's a one-day occasion. The whole entire town comes. People from Rome, people from Milan go. People from around the world come to see it. And it's like tiny town. That's what I found so funny about it, is that like no one really knows, like no one outside of Italy knows what Viterbo is. Barely any people outside of Lazio know what it is, but only for the Santa Rosa, that's like what it's known for. And I think it's truly awesome.
it is, and it's been attended by prime ministers and other popes, and it was only stopped a couple times for wars, or because even if bad weather, they just postponed it the next night. And one postponement was this year. So this is a historic year as well. Rachel, that gets through the topics that I wanted to cover. I can turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Pat. Really appreciate that. So what I would love to do now, before we move on to our question and answer, is hear from our parents who have joined this meeting as well. And it's great to hear directly from the students who lived it, but as parents, you're living it too from afar. So I would love to turn it over, first introduce Gabrielle Summers, Samuel's mom. And Gabrielle, if you could just share, I know you had an opportunity to attend an in-person reception and sort of hear from parents there, and knowing what these folks on this call are thinking about, what would you like to share with them?
Oh boy, so I don't know how many parents we have. I'm only seeing the first page out of 3, but when Samuel came and said, I saw this presentation in his fall of his sophomore year, I want to do this. And he sent me a link, and I'm like, oh yeah. It's just an exchange for a couple weeks or a summer or whatever. And then when I opened it and read it, I was like, what? I actually did a little research because we have a friend whose daughter did it. And it was a coincidence. I had found out, I didn't know that she did it. And a friend had told me. So he was the head of Samuel's K-8 school, coincidentally. So I called him. His daughter had just did the Italy program the year before. And we talked with Samuel on a conference call. And I said, you know, Matthew, if you let Molly do this and everything I've read and everything you've said, I have no doubt its quality and the reputation is not just what you see on paper, but also what Matthew, he said it was the best year of Molly's life. And he said, Gabrielle, I'm right where you are. I said, no way, Jose, are you going away for a year? It's your junior year. It's an important year. And he said, absolutely, the academics are rigorous. And everything that I had learned from him was beyond my expectation. The support that Samuel had, the academics, the host family match was ridiculously perfect because Samuel loves carbohydrates. And let me tell you, they own a bakery and it was just, I mean, the food, Katerina fed him, you know, he did not want to come home. They definitely want to adopt him. In terms of letting him go, he had been at 6 hours away at a boarding school, but it was further away, obviously. My husband is European, so maybe in my mind it wasn't so bad, but I did not like he was that far because I was concerned about, oh, well, safety, his health. And again, beyond my expectations. Obviously, I'm sure you're thinking of the pandemic. We were, and I'll just try to wrap up here, we were informed every day what was going on. And this, you know, obviously was a life historical experience. The SYA handled everything for the children, and Samuel, you know, he had an earache once. I mean, beyond our expectations, we felt like he was in the best of hands. In terms of Samuel's growth and how he benefited from the program, Samuel is always very curious, always has been. Why? And like annoying when he was little, but why? But why? But why? This was one of the best experiences for him because he was always very curious, is always very curious, but maybe not super duper adventurous. Adventurous maybe, but this just pushed him way out of his comfort zone. And now, you know, I've never seen my son be so adventurous. There's so much he wants to do. And he grew independently at boarding school, but even more independently for this is, I don't know, please get my information from SYA if you have any questions, because I can't say enough wonderful things. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. So thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Thank you. It's so, I can't tell you, it's just so great to hear from your parents' perspective and your perspective as well. And I have to say, attending these events and meeting parents before they send their child, and then frequently they'll come back to the event 2 years later after their child has attended and they have an SYA alum. And it is so fun to talk to these parents who are so uncertain the first time I meet them, and then so they're so proud when I meet them 2 years later, and that's really great. So thank you for sharing that. Jeff and Carrie, I'm hoping that you have a few minutes to share your perspectives and what you were thinking and how you made your decision, and what you'd like to share with the parents who are on the call.
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of reiterate that what Gabrielle said. I mean, it was an amazing experience and exceeded all expectations. You know, I had some friends when I was in high school that did SYA, and so I was sort of familiar with it, but didn't know, you know, wasn't kind of sure when Daisy wanted to do it, what she was getting into, and, you know, was nervous and you just didn't know what to expect. Daisy was kind of a, you know, a adventurous, good kid, but, you know, lived a sort of, I would say, sort of typical sort of sheltered life here, and, you know, good life, but hadn't been out around too much. And when we went over to visit at Christmas, like just to see the transformation of her kind of independence and confidence was amazing. I mean, we get over there and she's showing us how to get on the train and, reading the train schedule and showing us all, how to get it. She toured us around Italy for 2 weeks, and that was amazing. And just, we would communicate with her regularly, but just kind of hearing updates of all the, amazing things she was doing with their travels, but also just in Viterbo and with her family was fun to hear. And I've seen the impact has definitely carried on beyond that year. I mean, the biggest thing I've seen this year is it's sort of driven, I think, a lot of her, the independence and kind of confidence that she picked up in SYA has had a big impact on her college search this year. She's a senior. And so, we live in Texas, and a lot of Texans are reluctant to leave Texas and want to go to college in Texas. And Daisy immediately said, hey, I want to look at schools outside of Texas. And so that's, which I don't know that wouldn't necessarily have been the case before. So that's, she's confident of getting out in the world and leaving home. So that's fun to see. And then it'd be some of the little things too that I noticed that and still appreciate is, she commented herself on the sort of the pace of life in Italy and the focus on family and sort of different than I think how we lived our life here. And probably most people, it's very hectic and lots of activities and things going on. And I think Daisy took away kind of an appreciation for not looking at your phone so much and kind of spending time with your family and not being so worried about kind of where you're going next and sort of living in the moment. So that was a great thing. And again, to reiterate too what Gabrielle said, it was a great interaction with SYA, especially when the whole sort of COVID thing happened, the communication and the way everything was handled. We couldn't have been happier. Mr. Scanlon, I think, is a great sort of father figure watching out for everyone. I mean, we showed up at Christmas and we went to visit the school and I had a little cough and he was very worried about me and he pulled out a thermometer out of his satchel and took my temperature and then gave me some told me to go to the pharmacy and what to get. And so I felt like one of his students and could tell that they're well looked after. So.
Oh, Jeff, thank you. That is great. Really appreciate all those personal experiences that really make it come to life. And Carrie, do you have some?
I will say I noticed a ton of changes in Daisy as well. She couldn't find her hat on her head. And the first time I got to visit her at like Halloween, she came running up with her crossbody and her passport and her phone charger. And she was just so ready for everything and could tell us how to get everywhere. And I would like to more speak as the reluctant parent. I grew up in Texas. I lived 2 hours from where I grew up. I went to college in Texas and I was terrified to let her go. And I am the biggest proponent now. Anyone who asks me about SYA, I just feel like I was so worried about not knowing the family or have ever been there. And it was a huge leap of faith on my part. And I mean, it was the most amazing experience. And her family, I mean, it was Daisy's birthday last month. They had her a birthday present here on the day of her birthday. I mean, they will always be members of our family. And I can't say enough good things about it. And they keep talking about how very tiny Viterbo was, but I didn't find it much any tinier. I mean, maybe compared to Rome, but it seems like most of the places that you visit in Europe, especially in Italy, and I mean, there was a ton to do. I loved it. And I got to go at Halloween and it was all decorated, the whole town for Halloween, and everybody was out bustling, celebrating that. We went back for Christmas and the whole town was decorated for Christmas and there was a Christmas fair. It's wonderful. I loved it. And I think it's a great town.
Thank you so much, all of you. Really, really great perspectives. So I now want to open up our event for questions. And I know we've got students on the call, we've got parents on the call. We are happy to take a few questions. If we are not able to get to your question, I do want to encourage you all to schedule a quick call with one of our assistant directors of admission, which you can do. We've got several links on our website. You click on the admissions button right up there at the top. It'll send you to a page that'll say ask an assistant director of admission. You can sign up. There's a schedule right there. You can sign up for a 10-minute phone call, and we can answer all the questions that you have. We're also happy to put parents in touch with other parents. If they want to talk to a parent who has sent a child, Gabrielle has offered. Probably won't be able to talk to everyone on the call because we've got a lot of parents, but if you want, we've got plenty of parents who are willing to have conversations with other parents who are trying to make this decision with their family. So I want to encourage that as well. So we're going to give this a try since we don't have our chat box functionality on this particular event. We're going to do a unmute yourself, ask your question, and then I'll decide sort of who I think sort of makes the most sense to answer that question. So why don't we start? The first person who wants to ask a question. Identify yourself and then tell us sort of where you're from, and then the question would be great.
I can ask a question.
Go ahead.
My name is Victoria Shelton Gilbert. I'm from Oakland, California. My daughter is a student at Headroy School, and she actually takes French. So I would love to hear a little bit more about, she wants to build her Italian, obviously. So can you talk a little bit more about the students who arrive in Italy with no Italian?
Pat, you want to take that one? You're muted.
So that would be just about everyone. Because students don't have opportunities to study Italian in many schools, almost all of our students come as raw beginners. And so I'll ask the students really quickly, because actually it was a question I cut out because of time, but here you've asked it. When they knew, if you got Daisy and Samuel, if you could answer me quickly, at what point did you know you could speak this language? And both of you could, but what point did you know that?
Should we both answer it?
Yeah, please do.
Oh, okay, so I'll just quickly go. It was definitely really intimidating at first, as a lot of new things are, and like I guess it just taught me that if I were to really focus myself and learn a new language in like the short lovely time that we had, like I would have to immerse myself in all aspects of the culture, which is what the school does so well with doing. So there wasn't a moment, like a lot of kids would like talk about like the alumni were talking about how they were like dreaming in Italian and listening to Italian music, and I was like, oh, there's no way like you could dream in Italian. And I would just, like occasionally still do, because you're just so like surrounded by a language and culture that becomes part of you. And I think definitely about like 4 months in, I was able to take it like all by myself. Like the classes were very helpful, but I think learning outside was probably the best thing that you could ever do to yourself. There were days where I would say stuff and I was like, how did I know how to say that? Like what? I never knew I could say stuff like that. And it's just really awesome to be able to do something so unexpected. So I wouldn't be worried at all about like sending someone there who doesn't know it, because everyone has done it. And I think it's probably the best memories that we leave with. So
yeah, like what Samuel said, like the moment I like is when you're just like walking down the street and you say something, ask for help, and you're like, whoa, like I just said that like completely like effortlessly, like exactly. Like I showed up and I remember I met my host family and I was like, ciao, and they're like, como stai, which literally means how are you? And I was like I knew nothing. Like I was like, oh my gosh, like oh. And then now like some of our good family friends happen to be Italian, and every time I see him I literally can have full conversations in Italian and know what he means. So it's just like amazing throughout the year to see your progress.
Thank you so much for that.
The next question. Do we have another question?
I can ask something.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cosette. I use she, her pronouns, and I go to school in Massachusetts. This is more of an academic question. I've heard very good things about the capstone projects. I know they were probably cut short last year on some level, so Daisy and Samuel, I don't know how well you can answer this one in particular, but generally speaking, how much independence versus maybe how much access to resources do students get in designing it and executing it?
I can answer that because unfortunately that you're right. Samuel and Daisy didn't get to do one. We have, the capstone project is not entirely wide open. We have a framework that says you need to do something that is experiential and place-based. And so the litmus test for that is you start thinking about it as soon as you get there, but it starts becoming refined in January. And you start thinking, what can I do that could only be that I'm interested in, and what can be done here? Because if you can do it in Arkansas or in Canada, it's probably not going to meet our standards. But if you're interested in something that can be done here, then it will likely be approved. I've learned to say to students, what would you like to do on a Sunday morning that you would wake up and do? And choose something that would get yourself out of bed on a Sunday morning to go do. And that starts getting kids to think a little differently about what they've done. So over the years, some memorable ones that I can think of are one student walked on a pilgrimage trail 100 kilometers to Rome that goes right through Viterbo. And working out of the logistics of that and then executing it was very complicated and very rewarding. She didn't do it alone and had to work out those logistics. Other projects included somebody who learned the local dialect as much as possible and then did his capstone presentation in the dialect. So just very advanced language skills. One student last year, I can't remember what Samuel or Daisy would have done, but one of my advisees had not learned how to ride a bike. And she was going to learn how to ride a bike here and ride it around to places that you can only get to and get to quickly by bike, even in the countryside. And she was, she's probably pointed toward the Ivy League and was thinking more in terms of what will the colleges like? And then it was like we gave her permission, do something you love and the colleges will like it. Her year was cut short like everybody else's, but she wrote me this thing that gives me goosebumps now. It says she went back to Boston, she learned how to ride a bike, and was able to do her capstone project, at least in Boston. Does that help with your answer? Okay.
Fantastic, thank you.
Can I add something real quick?
Please do.
Sure.
Even though that I didn't really get to do like the capstone project I wanted to do, thinking about it really changed. I mean, because we're kind of not really instructed, but we were mentioned to think about it, or at least think about what you would be doing, or like the certain area of what you would be doing. But I think when we were given out this framework of how to think about it, it really changed my whole perspective of just like thinking in general, like how can I do something that benefits me, like in like culturally and on a linguistic level. And when we were given this framework, maybe 3-4 weeks before coronavirus ended, but since I had that like piece of paper, that document telling us like what we should do this project about, even though I didn't get to do the project like in Italy, I still kind of think the way that the paper was like telling us to think, like kind of exploring things that you love but also like benefit you. And it's kind of, I still kind of have the idea in my head, like when I go back to Italy, I want to do something that I would have done in SYA. So yeah, it's definitely changed my idea. Like even though we didn't get to do it, even though it wasn't like the focus of our year, which was different than other years, it definitely changed my experience. So it's like a very powerful project. I don't really know how else to explain it.
This is a little different, but I wanted to build off that too, is like, yeah, like I remember getting that too, and you're just like, it really inspires you like to change your thinking. Like obviously when you go, you're only there for 9 months, like you want to make the most, but like then you're like, you really want to make the most and also have like out of your time. And also how that affected me too is like I made the most out of like my bonds there, and I made some like my best friends like in the whole world. Like I keep in contact with my family, like I talk to them multiple times a week, I text them all the time. And like my friends though, like it's such a unique experience. And I like my best friend there has come to visit me twice and like met all my friends here, and one of my other friends is coming to visit me in a few months, and like we keep in touch. Like we text at least once a day. Like you make your best friends, like the Italians, your family, but also like the people in this. It's so unique.
That's great. Thank you, Daisy.
Rachel, can I add one thing or two
Absolutely.
things?
Sure.
So the experience for Samuel and his friends that I've spoken to and parents, the people, we keep mentioning the people, it is the people, the teachers, the staff. The teachers are amazing. The staff, super supportive, like I said, the families and the friendships that they made. And just so you know, parents, because I have probably made more friends through SYA parents than I have at the boarding school my son is at, because we all met at the Boston airport, or a lot of us met at the Boston airport, and we exchanged information. And I keep in touch with 2 right now, and it's just been a lot of fun because Samuel is close friends, and we've seen a couple of those friends too. So you do make friends, even though, and people keep in touch. It's really nice.
That's great. Students and parents alike. That's great. Thanks, Gabrielle. Other questions of our audience?
Oh, I can ask one. I'm Hayden. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I go to Deerfield Academy. So I'm also a boarding school student, and this is kind of a direct question to Samuel. Like, how is it like assimilating back to boarding school life after you did SYA, and what attributes or traits did you bring back with you to campus?
So yeah, that's a really good question. I think, so the way I was kind of worried about leaving, it's definitely like one of the biggest sacrifices I've made, kind of in the sense that I'll be leaving what I was used to, leaving my friends, like which is what's supposed to be one of the most monumental years of high school. But you know, I think I'm so glad I just did not go to boarding school my year, because obviously it was great. Obviously I missed a lot, but coming back as like a more mature, like well-rounded person, I was definitely like a lot more confident. I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my last year, because especially, I mean, if you go, I mean, obviously we're all learning this right now, is like how to make the most of our time, like anywhere. And I think leaving from Italy for coronavirus definitely made me realize that, like, if I want to go back to boarding school, like obviously there's like sacrifices I have to make and things that I have to push myself through, but it's totally worth it to kind of, it's not an easy transition, but it's not a hard one either. Like, I didn't have a roommate this year, but just all the new things that popped up, I was kind of expecting them, because like Italy taught me to expect the unexpected. So it's an adventure, and the transition is also part of that. But it's definitely like a worthwhile one to make.
Yeah, we sort of say, you know, when you come back, because there is this transition period, that means it worked. That means you got something out of it. That means, you know, you really stretched and grew. Because if you came back and it felt exactly the same, then what did you get out of the experience? So, any other questions?
I had a question. I was wondering, what does SYA do to ensure the safety of the students in such an alien land?
So I can answer that one, Rachel.
That'd be great.
One of the ways to ensure safety is to have a set of rules. And so we have a set of rules that we publish in a handbook, and it would be quite familiar to you if you go to any school that has that rules. But the cities that we find ourselves in our schools are, by any standard, safe to begin with. If you look at them from a crime point of view, or if you look at them from an automobile accident point of view, they are statistically very safe. So that is one aspect. The other aspect is, for instance, our host families all have to pass a background check. All of them are registered with the local authorities for that reason. We meet our families. We teach our students some tricks to being a part of the culture and learning the language. All of those are, right off the top of my head, aspects of staying safe. We encourage students to trust their instinct, that you could be in another culture with another language, and if something doesn't feel right, you can call me at any time, and students do 24/7. So I'm on duty 24/7 or someone's answering a phone 24/7. Host families are available if you get lost. I'm glad to say that we, knock on wood, haven't had bad experiences because our students, heed our advice, take that care, learn their language, and we exist in places that we know very well and that we have a great deal of faith and trust in. I remain in close contact with the authorities as well, meaning the local police, the local prefecture, and they check in on us regularly. We have surveillance at the front door with video cameras. We have video cameras at both of our entrances. You can see we've put a lot of time into that very question because it is our primary concern. And I'm glad you asked. Is that a satisfactory answer for you?
Yes, and sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Paige Hill. I go to Newton South High School in Boston, Massachusetts.
Thank you, Paige. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paige. Thanks. So we're up over an hour, and I know people's lives are busy. Even though we're in a pandemic, people still have a lot of things to do and places to go, other Zooms to attend, that kind of thing. So we will wrap this event up. I do want to just highlight a couple of things. Again, one, if you still have questions, please schedule a call with one of our assistant directors of admission and we can answer any questions that you have. Also, if parents, you want to talk to another parent, just let us know and we're happy to connect you. I also just want to draw your attention to our events page on our website. We do have other recorded webinars that might be of interest to you. We did a live event on our college process and how we support students and families through that process, since many of our students are either juniors and a few are seniors. And so there's a webinar on that. There's also a webinar on our financial aid process and our merit scholarship program. So if you're interested in those things, I encourage you to tune in and watch those. There, if you just click on admissions and then the events page, the recorded events are there. So there's a variety of students and parents on this event at various stages in the admissions process. Some of you have actually made the decision that you're ready to apply and you've submitted your application and you're working to complete it. Some of you have started the application and filled in some information and haven't yet finished and sort of submitted the $50 fee. And some of you are still just inquiring and are trying to figure out if this is the right next step for you. So we are here to help you make that decision. Hopefully this event helped you sort of in your decision-making process with a little more information. If you have more questions, again, we're here. February 12th is our application deadline. And decisions will go out at the end of the first week of March. So there's still plenty of time to work on your application and get it done. If you're interested in pursuing that, we hope that we will have lots of applications. If the attendance at this event is any indication, there is a real appetite for study abroad next year, and we're really excited about that. I think people are very excited about the opportunity to leave their house and get out there and not just explore their neighborhood, but get out and explore the world. And so we will be waiting to receive you next fall. So in the meantime, as Pat said, as we started sort of what he talked about with our COVID process, we will absolutely be very transparent with you throughout this application and decision-making process as we put together our policies and procedures for the fall. And as the parents on this call have shared, we're very, very in close communication with families throughout this process. So you can trust us for that.
Also, sorry to interrupt, but if you have any more questions, you could totally talk to me or Daisy. I don't really know how we can give you our information right now, but I hope someone.
We will send out an email to everyone who's attended the event and with a link to a scheduled assistant director of admissions and the emails of the guests on the guests on the call so that you can email them directly if that would be okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for bringing that up, Samuel. That's great. So I just want to thank our guests, especially for taking the time out. They did a little rehearsal with us too yesterday. So they've taken a lot of their time to help us get the word out to a really very large audience today on our program in SYA Italy. And as Pat said, you could talk for days about it. I visited the program several times. It's the most special place that you can spend time. So really glad, hopefully we were able to share that with you and look forward to being in touch with you throughout the admissions process. And again, a huge thank you to guests and thank for our attendees for coming today.
Thank you, everybody. Grazie. Ciao. Ci vediamo.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Grazie.
Bye.
Grazie.